Welcome back to Agenda Kenya with me, Jason Nyantino. Tonight we are focusing on our election preparedness. As a country, how do we make it participatory, fair, and also peaceful? There were a couple of questions from the audience. Gladys, I want to give it a go.
Thank you, Jason. I think I'll start with the question that was asked by David about that maybe there is a feeling that women cannot withstand pressure, hence the reason why they're not being elected into office. First of all, that statement is what actually causes people not to elect women. It is that kind of bias towards women that I know that people like Tuvuke and places like Kenya Human Rights, where Betty is, are trying to resolve. In fact, David, women can withstand much more pressure than any man can, anytime. If you look back, growing up, if I look at the women, forget even the women in the city that you see, they were carrying women water on their heads, they have children on their backs, they're milking the cows, they're carrying firewood, they're raising their children, they're tilling the land. Yeah? So women have always been able to multitask. Okay. Actually, you'll be amazed at the power of a woman, especially the African woman. Okay. So I think that alone should be able to, we should begin, and I think that's what Tuvuke is doing, beginning to tell people that women are capable and that women can actually run for elective office and that women can make a difference. Okay. And today, name any woman that you've put in a position of power, they have been able to make a difference.
Thank you.
Look at Jennifer, look at Betty. They've been able to make a difference.
And look at Gladys. Okay. Betty, give it a go.
Again, I think, because of a history of discrimination against women and a history of marginalizing women is why now we have this new constitution that allows for affirmative action. But then again, I think it's important we realize that affirmative action is not just about women alone. It's also about communities that have been geographically marginalized. It's about communities that have been excluded from enjoying natural and national resources. And I think when the question was asked about the boy child being disadvantaged, nobody wants the boy child to be disadvantaged. But the truth is, the systems and structures which we are trying to change by making sure we have a new constitutional dispensation, we have a new structure of government that's now going to counties, that system, that new system is going to address the structural inequalities that also, that underprivilege girls and women, but also it will address the issues of marginalization of anybody in the Kenyan community. So, okay. I don't think women are trying to get ahead of anybody else. We're just trying to address the historical problems.
Thank you, Betty. I'll take my next question of the evening from Grace Akech, who is a women leader from Naivasha. Grace.
Okay, thank you so much. My name's Grace Akech, women leader from Naivasha. And my question is, what measures are being put in place to engage the youths, mostly in Naivasha, because they were the main perpetrators during the post-election violence?
Thank you, Grace. Jennifer, that is your forte.
We are interested in the youth as Tuvuke, really, because the future is youth, it's our youth. And we think the media of communication with the youth are the foreign. The social media, we have their tour forums, that is, and skits, that is through some of our partners who have huge platforms on churches. They reach you through theater, through skits, through the social media. And we have messages that are being developed and translated even into local languages. There are 10 local languages so that they can reach the youth. The youth need to hear, and the youth are already beginning to respond and saying, we want to have peace, we want to have our Kenya. The reason being, they are saying Kenya is ours. They're beginning to own Kenya. So that's the only way, that's the only thing we can do. And then we are engaging with the communities themselves, and we are telling the communities, the leaders in the communities, we are training the communities, telling them the youth were used very badly. They were abused. They were used very badly by politicians, and we are telling the youth, don't get used again. You were abused, and the youth agree.
So are you going to Naivasha? Because Grace is more interested.
We are in Naivasha. I mean, social media is everywhere. The youth in Naivasha are like the youth everywhere else. And we are physically, yes, in Naivasha.
Okay. Mr. President, why is Ford particularly interested in the young people of this country? And what outcomes, what do you want us to achieve with this kind of engagement?
We have to understand that the youth of this country will decide this election. This is a country where the average age is 19, under 19 in fact. The majority of voters are under 35. The majority of eligible voters are under 35. They need to register. Just keep that in mind. But more importantly, the future of this country belongs to these youth. For us, being able to engage Kenyan youth in the Kenyan future through this coming election is one of the most important things that can happen in the history of this country. This election is second only to the election after initial independence. It is a new constitution, a new beginning. Having these youth engage peacefully in a free and fair election is seminal, not just to the country, but to the image of Kenya in the rest of the world. It is their profound responsibility to fight not in the streets, but to fight in the ballot box to make sure that that election, which is their future, happens as well as it possibly can happen. Sure. That's why we're engaged.
Okay, let's fight in the ballot, not on the streets. You got that, you got that. So contributions from the audience, especially about youth participation. These are young people I'm seeing in front of me. Yes, gentlemen, your hand has been up for some time. Name, please. Your name, please.
Thomas Santakalle, I come from Finland, and I work for an organization called Voices of Africa. We do ICT for development, and we are involved in women's education, especially with the UNHCR, Dadaab refugee camp, but also in Kibera, Nairobi. So I would like to ask a question on checks and balances. Checks and balances are really important during this election in particular. What is the position of judiciary and what is the duty of judiciary during this election on avoiding, documenting and facing irregularities?
Okay. Thank you. Here, the gentleman in glasses, second row.
My name is Patrick Ocheng, and I want to identify with Tuvuke in some of the initiatives that they are doing. But I would like to challenge the panel that if we want to change the course of youth, we need to see your children, your teenagers, come out and interact with other teenagers who don't have opportunity to be on Twitter and Facebook. So that the discussion becomes a live discussion in the grassroots where you can wear gumboots and gloves and overalls instead of stilettos and the nice shoes that you wear in the cities.
Thank you.
That's what Naivasha is about. So I would like to challenge leadership in this country to bring their youth out, because many of the youths you bring up in your houses are in a certain comfort that they don't understand what happens in the other Kenya.
Thank you for that insight. One more. Yes, the lady at the back.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Caroline from Westlands. It's saddening that when a student comes out of secondary school and has that average mark, cannot be absorbed in the university. And I'm challenging the ministries. I think they should create a Kenya a polytechnic at every zone to at least absorb every youth that has not made it, because most of the challenges that we are having is because most of us, we are really idle in the community. So
thank you so much, Caroline, for that insightful comment. I'll take my next question, which we'll answer together with what has already been raised, from Arthur Okwemba. Arthur, your question.
I wanted to know, Ford Foundation has had tremendous engagement in Kenya in terms of deepening democracy. In the next years, I think the next 50 years, what can you identify as the three critical areas you are going to engage in and which you think they are going to transform this country in the next 20 years?
Okay, I think it's talking about the last 50 years. Mr. President, you will respond to that. We'll go systematically. There was a question for Gladys, judiciary. Are you prepared for the election process?
Yes, I think I can confirm that the judiciary is indeed prepared to hear election cases and petitions. You must recall that several months ago, the Chief Justice established a judiciary working committee on election preparedness. That committee has even given its first report. They have even recommended amendments to the changes to the Elections Act in order that the judiciary is able to hear the cases very quickly, within 6 months as required by the Constitution. There is also a clear plan, and which has already started, training of all judicial officers on election matters, and there is judges and magistrates. And by the time we break for Christmas, all judicial officers who will handle election petitions will have already been trained. So the judiciary is ready. We have learned lessons from 2007.
Thank you. Louis, Ford Foundation, you're celebrating 50 years in the region. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Respond to Arthur's question. What are the critical areas? You can also give us an overview of what you've done in the region for the last 50 years.
You know, our work over 50 years has been absolutely remarkable. We were here when the founders of this country were here and provided technical advice and other kinds of support. We were here 25 years later to help build microfinance in this country, one of the first funders doing that work that now has 1 million direct customers, 10 million indirect beneficiaries, nearly 1 in 4 Kenyans. And today, we're working at this seminal transition, supporting Tuvuke and other initiatives like it to make sure that this election is as efficacious, is as good as it can be. When I think about 50 years from now, when people look back on our work and our time, I mean our time as Kenyans, as Ford Foundation staff, as people here tonight, I imagine that we'll look back on the work we will have done in this period and think about that work in democracy building as absolutely central, stepping back and saying it was then that the second half of the Kenyan liberation happened, that the stable democracy we enjoy now in 2062 was based on what happened that morning, that election we had. The second thing, I think, is this idea that economic growth and prosperity, Agenda 2030, for example, the building of infrastructure and the platform for prosperity that could be, is something that at that point we just assume. And that Ford's work in economic development, in particular in rural areas, played a strong part in it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that does it for Agenda Kenya this week. I thank my panel and my studio audience for this wonderful discussion. And to all of you at home for watching, you can still be part of this conversation by responding to this question. Do you think Kenya will have a free, fair, and peaceful general election come March 2013? You can respond to the number on your screen, give us your name and location. You can also add a brief comment as to why you think it's a yes or it's a no. As usual, you can extend this conversation on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And let's get to know what you think. And until next week, goodbye.